In 1996, Spokane, Washington is gripped by a series of violent robberies and bombings. The FBI links the crimes to a radical group determined to overthrow the government. Facing deadly traps and a nearly invisible foe, investigators vow to stop the shadowy extremists, ready to unleash more domestic terror.
The Constitution of the United States allows for the lawful expression of any belief. But when a paramilitary faction used bombs and robbery to further their cause, they crossed the line. The well-organized terror cell was difficult to define and even harder to stop. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. As the group stockpiled weapons for an assault, the FBI and local police were determined to bring them to justice.
Spokane, Washington, a city of 200,000 near the state's eastern border with Idaho. On Monday, April 1st, 1996, 24 people were working inside a satellite office of the city's Spokesman Review newspaper. At 2:30 p.m., a van pulled up behind the building. It was there, less than 15 seconds. Inside, a reporter had finished his work and was looking forward to spending the afternoon with his son. They did not realize what was waiting for them outside. Despite significant damage to the building, nobody was injured. Units from the Spokane County Sheriff's Department responded to the 911 calls. The reporter and his son had not seen anything suspicious. But one employee said that seconds before the blast, she saw a masked man jump into a white van that sped away from behind the building. She didn't get a license plate number. While much of local law enforcement was at the newspaper office, a white van pulled up outside Spokane's U.S. Bank several miles away. It had been 15 minutes since the newspaper bombing. Two armed, masked men burst into the bank and announced they were robbing it.
Okay, people, this is a robbery! Move!
As they passed her, one teller tripped the silent alarm.
Stay where you're at! Move it! Stand still.
The robbers threatened to detonate a pipe bomb if anyone disobeyed their orders.
Take the cash out and fill the bag up.
They warned the teller not to give them dye packs, paint canisters designed to explode and stain stolen money, and bank robbers. Once the gunmen had their money,
You, over there, and you.
they herded everyone into a corner.
Move it now! Okay, folks!
They trained their guns on the hostages, allowing valuable seconds to tick by as the fuse burned. At the newspaper office crime scene, investigators heard radio reports about the bank robbery and explosion. That scene was secure, so several detectives headed to the new crime scene. And the sheriff's office dispatched more deputies to the bank. At the time, Special Agent Mark Cullinan of the FBI's Spokane Resident Agency was on his way to the newspaper bombing with his partner.
While en route, we received a call that a bank robbery had occurred. Another bomb had been set off inside the bank. Since my primary investigative jurisdiction was bank robberies, I immediately diverted to the bank.
The employees and customers were shaken, but safe. They believed everyone had gotten out before the blast.
That roof's gonna go.
But investigators had not yet declared the crime scene secure. Explosives Disposal Unit Supervisor Sergeant James Goodwin had to make sure it was safe for police to check the building.
We were concerned about the possibility of a second device because any time you have an explosive device-related incident, if you have one, there is always at least a potential that you have another.
Bombers sometimes leave a second device behind as a booby trap, specifically to target law enforcement. The Explosives Disposal Unit swept the bank, determining it was clear of additional bombs or victims, and radioed to those outside that it was safe to process the scene.
Okay, it's all clear.
You gonna get on the phone and see what we can get?
The assailants were fast and organized, getting in and out in seconds and making off with $50,000. They weren't typical bank robbers.
Bank robberies are usually conducted by lone individuals who are seeking money to support a drug habit or something along those lines. To have somebody in an organized manner come in and take over a bank with this much violence and prior planning is an unusual occurrence.
Agents questioned one witness who was in the bank's parking lot when the robbery took place. She said after the explosion, she saw two masked men run from the bank and get into a white van. A third man was driving. He had gray hair and a beard.
It was a white van.
White van. They both had masks on.
She had written down the van's license plate number.
And they drove off. I looked back over after writing this down, and I saw the guy pulling the black mask.
Yeah, we need to be on the lookout for all.
They learned it had been stolen from Ellensburg, Washington.
Plate number 2233U.
Charlie 504, I'll be checking the parking
Spokane
lot.
Emergency Dispatch issued an APB for the van, and officers began a block-by-block grid search of nearby streets. At the newspaper office, FBI agents arrived and questioned the witnesses.
Drove away, and they sped off down the road.
Did you ever see that second guy take the mask off?
The woman who saw the van there also mentioned that the driver was an older man with gray hair and a beard. But the most distinct clues linking the two crime scenes were leaflets containing religious propaganda, a common sight in the area.
At the scene of the Spokesman Review bombing and also at the bank, we did discover numerous leaflets which had obviously been left there by the robbers. Religious propaganda is pretty prevalent throughout the area. A lot of times these groups will leaflet a neighborhood or an area, leaving them under windshield wipers and on front doorsteps, just spouting their ideals and trying to get their message out.
But this group delivered their message with bombs and bank robbery.
Charlie 504, I've located
Sheriff's
the van.
deputies continued their search for the getaway van.
Plate 2233 Union.
90 minutes after the bank robbery, one deputy spotted it in a parking lot a mile from the bank. From the back, he couldn't tell if the robbers were there. No one was inside. Dispatch advised the deputy that the van could be rigged with a bomb. The explosives disposal unit arrived in minutes. They knew the suspects might have booby-trapped the vehicle. If there was a bomb in the van, its trigger device could be radio-controlled. Since police radios can set off such triggers, investigators ordered all radios turned off. Because they had enough open space to do so, they used a robot with a camera to check the van first.
We initially sent the robot downrange in an attempt to look into the van. We found that we were limited in what we could see, and we sent a technician downrange near the van in a bomb suit.
The others waited in the mobile command center for the technician's report. Even in the most dangerous situations, bomb technicians need to keep their hands uncovered in case they have to perform delicate tasks. It is an unavoidable risk of the job.
He smelled gasoline, saw what he thought to be gasoline coming from underneath one of the doors to the van, and saw what appeared to him to be a time delay device that appeared to be intended to ignite the gasoline.
Since the trigger was a time delay, not radio-controlled, it was safe to resume using radios. Attached to the wick, the technician saw a small initiator, an element that sets the wick burning.
And causing incendiary in that route.
And what would you like to do with it?
Well, look at this. I can probably ready safe it.
Mark, before you go ahead and separate the two, would you let us know that you're going to do it?
In an effort to preserve any evidence the van might contain, the bomb squad technician was putting his own safety in jeopardy.
Okay, go ahead and make the cut. All right, good, get it out of there.
It worked.
Okay, he's got it out of there.
In the van, investigators found another copy of the manifesto the robbers left behind at the bank in newspaper bombings.
Right down here at the hands here.
To FBI Special Agent David Bedford, the rhetoric in the letter was typical of white supremacist militia groups in the area.
That was more or less a long religious sermon about usury, a biblical term referring to the charging of interest. And the thing that stood out most about this letter that was left behind was a symbol on the page. Compare with this one right here.
Agents knew they could get help analyzing the manifesto from a Spokesman Review reporter. Bill Moreland is an expert on extremist groups in the area.
For the past 22 years, I've covered hate groups here in our area in the Northwest. Chief among them, the Aryan Nations, which is 35 miles from Spokane in North Idaho. It's attracted a lot of different extremists from different movements, the anti-tax movement, anti-abortion movements, the Ku Klux Klan, Posse Comitatus.
The FBI showed Moreland the robbers' manifesto.
It was clearly white separatist dogma, but what intrigued me most was what was on the bottom of that note. It was the Christian cross superimposed with a capital P, and it's what I knew to be the logo of the Phineas priesthood.
Individuals who call themselves Phineas priests say the crimes they commit are in accordance with their interpretation of God's law, sometimes robbing banks to finance a plot to overthrow the federal government. Moreland told agents about an interview he had done months earlier. As part of a story, he'd arranged to meet several members of an extremist group at a clandestine location. They did not identify themselves as Phineas priests, but they professed some similar beliefs.
When we got there, we saw 7 or 8 individuals who were heavily armed, automatic weapons, street sweeper type shotguns, sidearms, all dressed in Army camouflage type material. They went through a number of exercises for our benefit.
The men explained they worked in cells with no formal leader, no strict organization. This leaderless resistance was designed to make it difficult for law enforcement to track them. They said they were preparing for an armed confrontation with the federal government.
I said, well, what happens if you're driving home from this event, from this training exercise, with all your guns and your military equipment? If a police officer were to stop you on a traffic offense, what would you do? And the individual I was talking to said, didn't hesitate for a minute. He said, I would kill him. I'd kill the police officer. When we're equipped like this, he said, we're running hot, and we would shoot to kill any police officer that stopped us to protect the identity of our group.
Agents believed the bank robbers they were after were every bit as dangerous and elusive. After masked men robbed a bank in Spokane, Washington, and detonated bombs at the bank and a newspaper office, authorities suspected well-armed extremists who called themselves Phineas priests. Spokesman Review newspaper reporter Bill Moreland is an expert on extremist groups in the Pacific Northwest. The FBI asked him for details about self-professed Phineas priests known to commit violent crime in the name of religion.
They're secret groups, and they come together with 5 or 6 or 7 of their fellow people that are fellow believers and decide to carry out some sort of action. They don't tell the world about it, and you can't look them up in the phone book or on the internet. They're very secretive. They believe that God is one of their members and that they're following his directions to carry out these crimes that they commit.
Special Agent David Bedford was part of the team investigating extremist groups in the area.
Hey, here's one more thing. I wonder if you get a chance later on.
They found nothing related to the recent bombings.
The lead that was set out, we had very few leads to go by after the robbery. The individuals were masked, they wore camouflage clothing, they wore gloves. Very few leads to work with, other than a composite drawing of the getaway driver.
The FBI hoped to have more than a vague drawing before going to the public to reduce false leads that take up time and resources. But they could not wait any longer.
So what we did was publish that and sent copies all around Washington, Oregon, Idaho, with the idea, with the hopes of someone identifying this person.
Information that was called in was filtered through the FBI's Rapid Start program, a database system designed to collect and organize large numbers of leads so they can be prioritized.
Oh, actually, I do see it's just south of... We received hundreds and hundreds of tips or possible leads of who this individual was. And so a team of agents would go out and investigate all of these people who came in that were lookalikes.
One by one, they eliminated suspects.
James Johnson, no longer suspect.
Despite spending hundreds of man-hours following every viable lead, investigators came up with nothing. The case stalled until the assailant struck again. On July 12th, 3 months after the first attacks, a woman spotted a masked man placing a bomb in front of a Spokane health clinic. She called in the getaway van's license plate number. Spokane's 911 call center dispatched fire and police personnel to the scene.
Baker 504. I'll be checking the area.
Like a dozen others, Deputy Dan Spivey of the Spokane Sheriff's Office started off toward the clinic. What the deputies didn't know was that the U.S. bank that was robbed in April was being hit again. This time there were 3 masked gunmen instead of 2. Like the earlier robbery, the assailants had a bomb.
Lady, you know the drill.
One teller recognized the voice of one of the robbers and set off the silent alarm as she loaded up cash.
Hurry up, let's go! Now!
The men moved efficiently, spoke in code, and seemed to be timing the robbery. They didn't notice the drive-through teller who worked in a separate part of the bank.
Zip it up, please.
While those inside the bank were staring down the barrels of guns, everything appeared normal to customers on the outside.
Hello?
Hoping the robbers had not heard the customer over her loudspeaker,
Hello?
the drive-through teller tried to get him to help. She didn't know if the customer understood her gestures, if he would help or run. Deputy Spivey was almost to the clinic when he got a more urgent call.
Baker 504. I copy.
I heard a bank robbery in progress come out at the same U.S. bank that had been robbed on April 1st.
But before deputies arrived, one of the assailants announced they were at Code Blue, and they left, taking $37,000 in cash and the bomb with them. The drive-through customers saw the men get in their van. He decided to tail them and called 911 as he drove. The plate he reported did not match the one from the health clinic, but criminals often put 2 different plates on stolen vehicles to confuse investigators.
On East Gray Street. Hold on while I call dispatch.
Spokane Emergency Dispatch advised the man not to put himself in danger. He said he would follow at a safe distance until deputies caught up. Police hoped the customer would not be spotted by the armed assailants. In July 1996, authorities believed members of an extremist militia group robbed the U.S. Bank in Spokane, Washington for the second time in 3 months. A customer saw the robbers leave in a van and followed. Deputy Dan Spivey was en route to the bank when he heard about the pursuit.
Our dispatch advised us that a citizen with a cell phone was following that suspect vehicle, and they in turn were relaying location information to us field deputies.
Spivey changed directions to try to catch up. The customer gave constant updates on his location, but had a hard time keeping up with the suspect's van while not being spotted.
Behind a mall area, the citizen lost the vehicle. And I quickly searched the area, attempting to locate such a vehicle. Was unsuccessful. Decided to go back through the area in a more slow, methodical manner.
After an hour of searching, Spivey drove into a parking lot above the downtown area.
I checked an upper parking lot, and at the far end of the parking lot saw what I believed to be the suspect vehicle. Excuse me, ma'am. Would you leave the area right now, please? Get on the other side of the lot. Sir, could you get away from that vehicle and go down towards the other end of the lot? Thank you. Baker 504 rear plate, 2233 Victor.
One plate matched the one from the bank robbery. And the other from the health clinic bombing. No one appeared to be inside.
I'll be backing up and standing by.
Explosives Disposal Unit Supervisor Sergeant James Goodwin, who helped defuse a bomb in a van after the April bank robbery, declared the vehicle an explosive hazard.
Given the history, we had a concern that this vehicle may contain a device as well. The natural thing to expect, given this was kind of the second go-around, was that having been unsuccessful the first time, they would try harder the second time.
Deputies smelled a strong gasoline odor. But again, it was difficult to see what kind of device might be inside. Rather than risk sending in a squad member, explosives disposal technicians once again deployed their specialized robot. The technicians operated the robot remotely from the safety of inside the EDU truck.
We sent the robot downrange in an effort to scout the vehicle and see what we could see.
The robot was equipped with a video camera, remote-controlled eyes for the explosives disposal unit. Technicians guided the robot to peer inside the van looking for a bomb.
The windows of this particular van had been darkened, so we weren't able to see much of anything at all.
They tried the robot's lights.
Oh, too much window tint on. I can't see anything out of the back either.
There seemed to be something in the van, but the robot's camera still couldn't see clearly through the window tinting.
Can't see anything out of that window, can you?
They needed to know what the object was.
We elected to use the robot to shoot a window out of the van and open it so that we could see inside.
The technicians then activated the robot's water cannon disruptor, which fires a slug by water pressure rather than gunpowder, so sparks are less likely.
Take the shot. All right.
Nice job, boy. They did it.
Why don't we see if we can get some of that glass raked out of the window so we've got a good view of the inside.
They used the robot's powerful claw to clear the glass.
Once the window was broken, we were able to see inside the van and observe what appeared to be an incendiary device. It looks like a couple propane cylinders, timer, and I'm not sure what that is. Yeah, taped into the timer.
It looks like an initiator. Right down here? Yeah. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the window.
It appeared that it was intended to initiate a fire in the van, burn the van, thereby leaving us very little evidence.
The explosives disposal technician guided the robot to clear the bomb from the van. He then moved the bomb to a more remote area so they could render it safe.
There it is.
They again used the water cannon disruptor.
Take your shot when you're ready. Ready? All right.
Just open it right up.
In the protective suit, a technician checked the bomb and confirmed it had been rendered safe.
It looks like he's all clear down there.
Once again, the suspects had used a stolen van.
Good. All right. Good.
But this time, investigators found no manifestos or other evidence inside. Although there were 3 assailants in the latest robbery, the FBI believed the same individuals robbed the bank 3 months earlier. For help, they turned to forensic examiner Richard Vorderbrugge of the FBI's Audio, Video, and Image Analysis Unit. Similar clothing and weapons suggested 2 of the gunmen took part in both robberies. Vorderbrugge analyzed surveillance video to determine their heights.
I used a technique called perspective analysis photogrammetry. That involves taking a set of measurements of fixed objects within the scene, determining the specific perspective of the scene, that is to say, how the camera itself was related to fixed objects within the scene.
Because the cameras were facing downward, Vorderbrugge had to use complex mathematics to determine how actual size is reflected at that angle. He then compared the measurements of the fixed objects, such as a table leg, to the relative height of the bank robbers. He concluded the 2 robbers from the April 1st robbery were very likely 2 of the 3 from the July robbery.
One of them was approximately 5 feet 7.5 inches, and the second robber was approximately 6 feet 1 inch. And by finding, as I did, that the heights of the 2 individuals in the bank in each case were about the same, it certainly helped strengthen the case that they were the same people involved.
With the robberies and bombings likely committed by individuals calling themselves Phineas priests, the FBI elevated the status of the suspects.
We decided that they were not here for the sole purpose of robbing a bank and taking the money. These guys had a message that they were trying to get out to the public, and it was causing havoc in the city of Spokane. A lot of people were concerned about their safety, and as a result, the FBI felt like, you know what, these are terrorists.
To help capture the domestic terror suspects, the U.S. Bank offered a $100,000 reward. Despite the reward, a month passed with no new leads. Agents believed the terrorists were out there training, getting ready to strike again. After authorities linked several robberies and bombings in Spokane to a suspected group of domestic terrorists, the targeted bank offered a $100,000 reward, and the FBI released a composite sketch of the getaway driver. A month after the second bank robbery in August 1996, the reward offer generated a promising lead. An informant came forward saying he thought he knew the man in the composite sketch. The informant, a licensed firearms dealer, believed he met the man and a few others several months earlier. It was before the bank robberies began. He sold a group of men military clothing and equipment.
Merchandise that you guys ordered.
One of the men looked like the driver in the sketch. The informant said they asked about buying plastic explosives and a bazooka. Then they asked for his help outfitting their SUVs with tank armor and bipod-mounted machine guns. But he wanted nothing to do with such illegal activities.
I don't know if I can help you guys on that.
Before he left, one of them bragged that a small group of well-prepared men was going to bring the banking establishment to its knees. The informant said he met the men at an auto repair shop owned by one of them. The shop was located in the small town of Sandpoint, Idaho, about 75 miles northeast of Spokane. In late August, the FBI went to Sandpoint to investigate the lead. Agents rented an abandoned building with a view of the auto repair shop and discreetly watched the suspects as they outfitted their SUVs. FBI Special Agent Mark Cullinan believed they might have found the robbers.
When observing these subjects' daily activities, it was suspicious to us, first of all, that they didn't have any noticeable means of employment. That was an indicator to us that they're gaining money or the means to operate through other methods. Since we didn't know what had happened to the money from the bank robberies, this was a possibility.
Agents photographed the suspects and anyone seen on the premises.
One of the individuals we identified as Robert Berry. Berry ran an automotive repair shop in the Sandpoint area, but didn't seem to be doing any business, didn't seem to be using it to generate any income.
Agents identified a second suspect as Charles Barbie. Although Barbie had no record of convictions, he had been arrested for trying to buy supplies from military personnel. Barbie and Berry matched the heights of the bank robbers given by forensics experts. The FBI determined the third man was Vern Merrill. Merrill appeared to be the leader of the group, and he resembled witness descriptions of the getaway drivers seen at the bombings and bank robberies. Agents needed more information on the men. They took a risk to get it.
Go ahead and kill the light. Kill the light.
One night in early September, after the suspects left the shop, surveillance teams installed a hidden video camera on a telephone pole behind the garage. Agents didn't know if the area was booby-trapped or if they themselves were being watched. The teams got out safely.
Looks like they're shooting an assault rifle.
What the camera revealed was chilling. Agents watched the men test different weapons and types of bullets to see which could pierce the steel of car doors and the Kevlar of bulletproof vests. It was clear they were preparing for battle. During weeks of surveillance, the FBI tailed the suspects from the ground and the air as they drove to various cities in the Pacific Northwest. Agents believe the men were casing banks.
Suspects are heading west on Sprague Avenue.
On September 6, 1996, 2 months after the second robbery, the bank, newspaper office, and health clinic previously targeted received threatening letters promising further violent attacks.
Some sort of stationary surveillance plan.
Authorities developed contingency plans that would allow them to follow the robbers to their next target,
So far, they've hit us twice. They can't choose
wherever
which
it might
direction
be.
they head over. But that's not to say they couldn't take any of the other back roads down to meet or intersect I-90. So what we're going to have to do is come up with points far enough away that they can't take a back road and get around behind us before getting in their home territory up there.
A month later, on October 8th, investigators on the stakeout observed what they believed were final preparations for another bank robbery.
Okay, listen up, units. They're all leaving now. 3 white male occupants.
They contacted Special Agent David Bedford.
69213. They're leaving now.
I received a phone call from the agent that was actually watching them load up. I started calling a lot of other coworkers saying, get in your car, start heading towards Sandpoint because something's going on and we need everybody up there as soon as possible. And so we began our surveillance, not knowing where they were going to end up.
The FBI tailed the suspects as they headed west out of Sandpoint. Their license plates indicated the truck was to be used in a crime.
The plates on the Suburban did not match front to rear, and both had been reported stolen. This also added a new sense of urgency to our investigation.
They followed the men 400 miles west, across the Oregon border.
The individual looks like he's breaking into a van.
In Hood River, Oregon, agents watched the men steal a van from a used car lot and add it to their convoy. If the FBI was correct, the suspects planned to use the stolen van in a bank robbery and abandon it afterwards.
We observed the vehicles stop at a truck stop where they shifted some gear between vehicles, they did some moving around and some planning, and then they departed again in one vehicle.
As agents shadowed the van, they realized where the suspects were headed.
By approximately 6 o'clock in the morning, we were hundreds of miles away from where we had started and on the outskirts of Portland. We watched them drive a meandering route into the city.
By 10 o'clock, it was clear which Portland bank the suspects intended to hit.
They're making a left into a parking lot. Appears to be a bank.
And as we watched them pull into one of the bank parking lots, we notified the bank. They immediately locked the doors to the bank, keeping all of their customers and everybody inside. And our plan was, as they exited the vans to go up and enter the bank to rob it, we were going to arrest them.
What do you think?
Agents waited for the suspects to make their move.
Good here. I like it. All right, they're in front of the bank.
I was approximately 30 yards away from them, and with my binoculars I could see exactly what they were doing inside the van, and that was pulling out their guns. They were donning masks, they were putting on their camouflage gear, and they were getting ready to make a break towards the bank. And it was at that time they saw the same things that we saw. The customers that were trying to get into the bank were unsuccessful because the bank had been locked.
It looked like the suspects were standing down. The field agents called in for instructions.
Let's keep surveillance on the vehicle.
Our agents were conferring with the United States Attorney's Office, with the heads of our divisions, and making a determination as to whether we had enough evidence at this point to arrest these subjects.
While the team conferred, surveillance units followed the stolen van as the suspects retrieved their Suburban.
They started driving back towards Washington, and we continued to follow them.
Try to take them down to the next safe location.
Soon they got the go-ahead for the arrest. Now they needed to find the safest opportunity to do so.
On the next stop, all units converge.
When the subjects stopped for gas at Union Gap, Washington, we decided that that was the best place that we had in order to effect an arrest.
But with such violent and heavily armed suspects, there was no guarantee of a safe arrest scenario. After months of investigating domestic terror suspects, surveillance units tailed them to a Union Gap, Washington gas station. Two of the suspects stayed in one of their vehicles, while the third entered the gas station. With the suspects split up, the lead agent put the operation in motion.
Temple.
They needed to synchronize the arrests, so all three suspects were surprised.
FBI, you're under arrest.
You all right? Freeze the wheel. Hit the car. Hit the car.
Hands on the wheel.
Hit the car, bro. Put your hands on the car. Hands
The bed of the vehicle.
Put your hands on the car.
Vern Merrill, Robert Berry, and Charles Barbie were arrested without a fight. Special Agent David Bedford discovered things could have gone much differently.
Following the arrest, we did a search of the vehicles they were driving. We found hand grenades, thousands of rounds of ammunition, probably half a dozen different types of weapons, gas masks, tear gas canisters. These guys were definitely ready for battle.
Agents also found a threatening letter to the Spokane bank that had been robbed twice. Despite the 3 arrests, the FBI knew one suspect was still at large.
One of the things that was a question in our minds was on the July 12th robbery, there was 3 people that came inside and a getaway driver. We were still unsure who the 4th robber was.
Agents interviewed friends and associates of the arrested suspects. They learned the 4th man was most likely Brian Radigan.
One of the things that concerned the FBI was Brian Radigan's military experience. He apparently had some training in sniper school, and so the surveillance, the investigation that we did regarding Brian was very careful, very thought out.
Those who knew Radigan said he was heavily armed, well-trained, and paranoid.
Just throw that in there, all right, and if you don't mind.
The FBI wanted to avoid a violent confrontation, as did the suspect's family.
We solicited help from Brian Radigan's family members who, after talking to them for some time, felt that it would be in his best interest if he came forward and was arrested. And so a family member sent a train ticket to Brian and his wife.
The ticket was for a phony departure at a time when the FBI knew no other passengers would be at a Washington State train station. Undercover agents posed as station employees. When Radigan seemed at ease, they made their move.
FBI, freeze! Hit the wall! Get up,
Radigan had no way to fight back or run. He and the others would be tried for their crimes, not their political or religious views.
The FBI does not investigate individuals or groups based on their beliefs. We investigate crimes. We investigated these acts because they were violent crimes. They were bombings, they were bank robberies. We investigated them as we would any other violent crime.
On July 24th, 1997, Charles Barbie, Robert Berry, and Vern Merrill were found guilty on 8 counts related to the bombings and armed robberies, and were each sentenced to life in prison. In a separate trial, Brian Radigan was found guilty of similar charges and sentenced to 55 years. Although that one Phineas priesthood cell is behind bars, the FBI and experts like Spokesman Review reporter Bill Moreland know other domestic terrorist groups are still out there.
Since 1996, the number of militia cells has dropped off, but I believe there still are a number of them out there, and they're as hardcore and deeper underground than ever, and every bit as dangerous.
If these groups do commit crimes, the FBI will not stop until they are dismantled. On the glittering streets of Las Vegas, ruthless gunmen overpower defenseless victims and haul away a motherload of cash. Following a trail from exotic dance clubs to the tranquil suburbs, authorities finally put down the reckless robbers. But a daring jailbreak leads the FBI to a violent showdown with a man so desperate, he'll risk his own family to get what he wants.
In Las Vegas, a gang of robbers target an ATM repository and hit the jackpot. They take over $1 million in cash, the largest heist in Las Vegas history. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. The robbery was well planned and precisely executed. The FBI and local police struggled to identify and track a desperate criminal whose tendency for violence turned a robbery into a case of murder.
Las Vegas, a gambler's paradise, where even criminals sometimes try their luck. On the night of December 21st, 1998, a Las Vegas couple and their 18-year-old sister-in-law prepare to go to work. The family owns a janitorial service that cleans commercial buildings. Suddenly, two masked gunmen rush up and force them inside their own van. For the cleaning crew, an ordinary workday has just become a night of terror. The gunmen blindfold and tie up their three captives.
Well, shut her up. What are you looking at? Sit still. Sit still. Don't move.
They can hear the gunman talking to a female accomplice on a radio.
Let's go. Car 2, are you in position?
The gunmen seem to know the janitor's routine. They drive around until 11 p.m., the time they are scheduled to begin work at the Bank of America building. The gunmen even park where the janitors routinely park their van.
Let's go. Your feet down. Let's go, girl. Get out of here. Next.
The building is Bank of America's central ATM repository in Las Vegas.
Let's go.
Cash from 1,200 automated teller machines, often totaling more than $1 million, is delivered there each night. The gunmen force the janitors to use their key card and access code to unlock the door. This bypasses the bank's alarm system.
Get in there. Let's take it. Get over there. Come on. Sit down. Sit right there. Sit down. Look, turn around. Turn around.
The gunmen release the couple and order them to clean the building as they normally would.
Turn around. Look.
They keep the wife's sister hostage to ensure the couple complies with their orders.
She is dead. You hear me? She's dead. Act like you're clean. Get out! Now! Get out.
At 11:30 p.m., an armored car arrives to pick up the night's cash deposit. Following a standard security protocol, the two guards first call the bank security company to ask if there have been any unauthorized entries.
We're checking out the parking lot, the only thing.
The alarm company reports that the only people inside are the janitors. The only vehicle the guards see in the parking lot is the janitor's van. Inside, everything seems completely normal. The janitors are too terrified to say anything. The life of an 18-year-old girl is at stake. The guards open the vault containing $1,088,000. Shrink-wrapped and ready for pickup. Suddenly,
Get down! Get down! Get on the floor! Get your hands up!
as the gunmen disarm the guards,
Stay down.
one of them accidentally discharges his weapon. The bullet ricochets off the floor and hits one guard in the chest.
Come on, let's go.
What happened?
Oh.
I've been shot. Hang on.
One of the guards calls for an ambulance.
12. My partner's down. He's been shot. I need an ambulance. Quick, please. Please.
FBI Special Agent Henry Schlumpf arrives at the scene. He heads the investigation.
Everybody was very scared. And, it took a little while to calm everybody down and to get a story as to what exactly happened. And the descriptions that we got, because the subjects were masked, were very general in nature. We were looking for 2 males who were either white, black, or Hispanic, 6 foot, 6'3", and about 200 pounds. That was basically all the description that we had.
With little to go on, every detail is important.
The janitors told us that when the subjects first entered the bank, they were a little taken aback at the number of video cameras that were in the bank. That indicated to us that they had not been inside before.
This suggests that the robbery may not have been an inside job. Agents interview a truck driver who witnessed the robbers leaving the depository.
Turned over to here, I saw 2 guys just...
The truck driver was making a late-night delivery to a nearby store.
He saw 2 men run out of the depository and throw some bags in the back of a white Chevy S10 pickup truck.
And they just took off in that direction.
Authorities begin searching for the getaway truck.
I put out the announcement for all responding units to look for a white Chevy S10 pickup truck. It wasn't very long after that the vehicle was found about a quarter of a mile from the depository, just parked on a residential street.
Investigators run the truck's plates. Ironically, the truck is a police maintenance vehicle that was stolen from a Las Vegas Metro Police lot 1 week earlier. Investigators begin questioning neighbors, including a woman whose home is closest to where the truck is parked.
She hadn't seen anybody get out of the pickup truck, but earlier in the evening, there had been another truck parked in the same place. And she described that as a white GMC dually, which is a pickup truck with 4 wheels on the back axle.
Agents believe the woman saw the robbers switch vehicles, a common MO for bank robbers. They issue an APB for the white GMC truck. Hours later, they receive the welcome news that the wounded guard has undergone surgery and will survive. The next day, the bank determines that a total of $1,088,000 has been stolen. To date, it is the largest bank robbery in Las Vegas history. Although FBI agents believe this was not an inside job, they cover all their bases by interviewing the armored car guards and all bank employees.
We didn't have a lot to go on. We ended up interviewing everybody who worked at the branch and everybody who worked at the armored car company and polygraphing some of them.
Although agents do not find any new information, they do rule out the employees as suspects.
Thank you. The subjects who committed the robbery could have found out everything they needed to find out by following the armored truck around and following the guards around. And we surmised early on that that's probably exactly what they did.
With the investigation running out of leads, executives from Bank of America and the Armored Car Company decide to offer a reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the robbers. Agent Schlumpf advises them on how large the reward should be.
And I said $50,000, which was quite a lot for a bank robbery, but we were going to need to generate some public interest in this case.
Agents ask local authorities for their cooperation.
We notified the airport that we were looking for someone carrying large amounts of money. We notified all the jails to advise us if anyone tried to bail someone out with large amounts of cash.
A week after the $1 million robbery, the FBI receives a call from security at Las Vegas's McCarran Airport.
they had gotten a telephone response from someone asking if large amounts of currency would set off the metal detectors. And they took the number down on caller ID and gave it to us.
Investigators use a reverse telephone directory to find the caller's address. Agents set up surveillance on that address, a home in the suburbs of Las Vegas.
There were people going in and out of the house about every half hour. Someone would arrive and someone else would leave. But it's curious, and I'd kind of like to know what's going on.
After several hours, agents decide to interview the people in the house.
Hello, how are you? I'm Investigator Davis from the Las Vegas Police Department. This is Special Agent Reed.
It was just a piano teacher who was giving half-hour lessons. And she was going to be going to Utah with about $3,000, and so she had called McCarran Airport to find out if that would set off the detectors.
The lead is a dead end. Agents are back where they started. But later that day, a woman responding to the reward poster calls the Las Vegas Metro Police. She claims to have key information about the bank robbery.
So tell me about this stripper friend of yours.
Her name is Jennifer.
The tipster tells agents about a dancer she knows who works at a local strip club.
Oh, Fuzzy Bottom. You know, over on Tampa.
Her name is Jennifer Arden. She says Jennifer has been spending a lot of cash lately.
He was able to give us a telephone number. We traced that number to a rented trailer.
The FBI sets up surveillance on the trailer. Agents watch for any clue to the identity of the two gunmen or the location of the stolen $1 million. In a matter of minutes, a white GMC truck pulls into the driveway. It's the same make and model the robbers used as their getaway vehicle. Agents run the license plates. According to the Department of Motor Vehicles, the truck is registered in Las Vegas to Timothy Blackburn. The driver enters the house and leaves minutes later. The surveillance team immediately notifies Agent Schlumpf.
The sighting of the GMC pickup gave us enough probable cause to get a warrant for the trailer.
Moments later, a SWAT team surrounds the trailer.
To serve the warrant, we brought a lot of people with us because we knew we were looking for armed and dangerous subjects. They had already shot one person. We knocked on the door of the trailer and nobody answered, so we kicked the door open and served the search warrant.
The SWAT team finds one man in the trailer. He identifies himself as Riley Bates. He reveals that Jennifer is his girlfriend. One team of agents begins searching the trailer for evidence, while another heads to the strip club to question Jennifer.
FBI, I'd like to ask you a few questions, please.
About what?
You've been spending an awful lot of money.
The exotic dancer told us that the money was her money that she had made over the past 4 years dancing, and that she didn't know anything about a robbery or anything else.
Back at the trailer, agents continue to search for clues. In the bedroom, they find a heavy-duty combination safe. It looks brand new.
The trailer was filled with trash, and it was not the kind of place where you would expect anybody with any money to be living. And yet here they had this brand new safe they had bought.
What's the combination?
Riley claims the safe belongs to his girlfriend, and only she knows how to open it.
Find out.
Agent Durham, may I help you? Jennifer. What's the number to the combination of the safe in
The
your cell?
agent asks Jennifer for the combination,
It's not my safe, it's my boyfriend's.
but
It's not
she
my
says
safe.
Riley
How would I
has
know
it.
the combination?
Did you hear that? She said she doesn't know what the combination to the safe is. The safe belongs to her boyfriend.
So we go back to Riley Bates and tell him that his girlfriend said he had the combination, so then he told us the combination.
Yep, that's it.
Inside the safe, the FBI finds $50,000 in cash and bags of marijuana.
Selling pot.
Riley insists that he made the money by selling marijuana and claims he knows nothing about the robbery. Agents strongly suspect he is lying. But with over $1 million missing, where is the rest of the money? Las Vegas, December 1998. A team of violent bank robbers shoot an armored car guard and flee with more than $1 million. A tip leads the FBI to a rented trailer and a brand new safe containing $50,000.
Bunch of cash in here.
Jennifer Arden, an exotic dancer, claims she earned the money dancing. Her boyfriend, Riley Bates, says he made the money selling marijuana. Now agents must find the rest of the money. Over $1 million in cash. The FBI calls in one of their top interviewers, Special Agent Brett Shields, to try to get the truth from Riley.
Where's that money from? You're getting a lot of trouble here.
We tried to remove him from his comfort zone and took him out to my car where he's a little bit more on edge rather than at the comfort of his own home.
Yeah. You're gonna get in a lot of trouble here.
Yeah, Riley Bates was a shifty little guy. He knew he was in a tough position because we'd found the money in the trailer.
He tried to maintain that it was profits from the marijuana that was found in the safe. It wasn't believable that he was that successful and he's still living in a single wide trailer.
You're gonna be in a lot of trouble here, you know that? I don't know where you're selling pot.
We had gotten convinced that we can help him out on the marijuana charges and he doesn't want to get tied up into the $1 million bank robbery.
He said, I didn't commit any robbery. So now Agent Shields and I know, we're probably about 2 questions away from finding out who did. So we said, okay, Riley, you didn't commit the robbery, but I believe you know who did commit the robbery. And he said, my brother Robert and his friend Tim.
It's my brother and his friend Tim. Really? Yeah. Well, where is Tim right now? I don't know where they are right now.
Riley claims that he doesn't know where his brother Robert is.
Where are they? But I don't know where they are.
But inside the trailer, agents find gaming chips and receipts from the Luxor, a casino on the Las Vegas Strip.
So we sent a couple agents to the Luxor, and they contacted management, and sure enough, Robert Bates was staying there.
The hotel's head of security tells agents that Robert Bates has been spending heavily, paying for everything in
That's
cash.
located where, sir?
That's in the southeast town. You see the types of items that they're purchasing.
Judging from his guest portfolio at the Luxor, Robert Bates had been just partying constantly since the night of the robbery.
The 2 agents stake out Bates's hotel room until he returns.
He was on some kind of drugs. There's no point in trying to interview someone if they're stoned on whatever he was on.
Bring your hand back, Mike.
Inside Bates's hotel room, agents find drugs, a gun, and $5,000 in cash. With nearly $1 million still missing, agents now concentrate on the second suspect named by Riley Bates, his brother's friend, Tim Blackburn.
We set up surveillance on Timothy Blackburn's house. So we had police and FBI agents surrounding the house.
They decide to approach Blackburn, but proceed cautiously. He's been investigated for armed robbery in the past and is considered highly dangerous.
Tim Blackburn was about 26 years old, 6'3", 230 pounds. He was a martial arts expert, and he liked fighting, and he liked guns. He was an accomplished marksman.
The FBI's criminal apprehension team moves into position. Special Agent Castle Nishimoto is a member of this elite tactical unit.
My job was to watch the streets. I knew he was armed, but I wasn't particularly scared at that point because I felt confident that I would be able to spot him, and from where I was watching.
The agents were just approaching the house to make contact with the people inside when a car comes driving down the road.
The SUV suddenly accelerates towards the agents. The driver loses control.
And the vehicle stops, and a man jumps out and runs away. We assumed it was Blackburn who had run out of the car.
He was jumping the fence, the walls in the back of the house and so forth, and trying to get away. And so from that point on, we began to search the area.
The driver of the vehicle is Blackburn's sister-in-law. Authorities take her into custody. The FBI and Las Vegas police launch a house-to-house search for Blackburn. Two blocks away, a canine unit picks up the fugitive's scent.
Got me. Come on out. You got me. Move it. Your hands. Don't leave us in the dog. Come on.
Blackburn was found by a canine unit hiding under a deck in someone's backyard. He had a mask and he had an ankle holster.
Fortunately for the canine officer, the holster was empty.
There's nothing in it, man.
Blackburn had lost his gun jumping over fences.
Hands behind you. Back.
Sorry, we got him. We'll take him inside for questioning.
I don't have him. We're gonna find this.
Investigators search the suspect's home while agents question Tim Blackburn and his wife, Sophia.
Because I know that you know what's going on. I know that you know where the money is. Can you tell us where the money is now, where it's been put?
They offer Blackburn a reduced sentence if he will admit to the robbery.
I don't have any money. If you don't see it, it's not here.
He refuses. Investigators continue to search the house.
An evidence response search is very methodical. It's not just everybody running around to where they think something might be hidden. Everything is photographed first, and then the search progresses room by room, and then the outside is usually done at the end. They find some flex cuffs, like were the same type that the janitors had been bound with, and they found some walkie-talkies and some other surveillance equipment.
I got something here.
Early that morning, in Blackburn's backyard, they find several duffel bags inside the doghouse.
I just couldn't believe that he put the money in the doghouse. And then on second thought, I thought, well, maybe that might not be a bad place to put the money, since nobody looks there. It's just an innocuous place.
Investigators recover more than $900,000, 90% of the stolen money.
It took about 10 hours to count it. So by 4 o'clock that afternoon, we knew we had the money from the Bank of America robbery.
The U.S. District Court charges Tim Blackburn and Robert Bates with bank robbery, kidnapping, carjacking, and using a firearm in the commission of a violent crime. They are held at the North Las Vegas Detention Center. But the FBI's work is unfinished. They believe that Blackburn and Bates were not working alone.
We knew that there was probably someone else involved in the robbery, that it was too much logistically for only two people to do.
Agents suspect Sophia Blackburn might be involved because her story does not seem credible.
I was at the house several times to talk to Sophia Blackburn. Sophia claimed to have no knowledge of the robbery, and in fact, she provided an alibi for Tim Blackburn on the night of the robbery. She said she was with him the whole night. She couldn't account for the money that they found or the other items that were in the house. She was worried because her husband was in jail and she had 2 young daughters to raise herself. So she was claimed to be cooperative, but she would have these stories that were in no way even close to plausible. But that's what she was going to stick with. And, there was not going to be really any way to talk her out of them. There was no way that she was ever going to give us any information that would implicate Tim Blackburn.
On August 11th, 1999, 7 months after the $1 million robbery, Sophia visits her husband in jail.
You can't tell him where I am.
She secretly uses a tiny tool on her keychain to loosen the screws securing the divider window.
That's good. So my babies are doing all right.
Babies are great.
As the visiting room guard leaves to escort a prisoner, Blackburn removes the bulletproof glass.
Tim Blackburn climbed through the window and dived into the sally port. The one door closed and the second door opened before anybody realized what he had done. As soon as the second door opened, he was just climbing over everybody in the sally port and he ran outside.
Sophia retrieves a gun she had hidden earlier and tosses it to Blackburn.
All the alarms are going off, and guards outside knew that there was a jailbreak.
As the Blackburns try to get away, they face startled guards in a violent shootout. August 11th, 1999. Timothy Blackburn, accused of the biggest bank robbery in Las Vegas history, breaks out of jail with the help of his wife, Sophia. FBI Special Agent Henry Schlumpf.
They tried to arrest Blackburn, but he shoots at them. This pickup truck that's sitting in the lot was going to be his escape vehicle. But the guards are returning fire.
Blackburn is forced to abandon the truck. Suddenly, his wife Sophia roars up in an Isuzu Rodeo. In a matter of seconds, they are out of range.
It was hard to believe that Blackburn had actually escaped from the jail because although a lot of people want to escape from the jail and many attempted, very few actually get away. But it just pointed out again how unpredictable Blackburn was.
Looking for leads, FBI agents Henry Schlumpf and Brett Shields tracked down the suspect's relatives.
Blackburn was going to have to go someplace to get some help.
Agents check out an apartment building where Blackburn's sister-in-law lives. Parked out front, they find the same Isuzu Rodeo used in the jailbreak. They run the plates and discover it belongs to Blackburn's wife, Sophia.
We see the truck in the parking lot. So now our heart's racing just a little bit more. Adrenaline's pumping. Since he was in federal custody, it falls under the U.S. Marshal's jurisdiction as well. So I called some Marshal friends of mine. We're sitting on this truck, not knowing if he's going to come back out to this truck, and we're going to have a confrontation right there before the Marshals get there.
After a few tense moments, U.S. Marshals arrive to help FBI agents raid the apartment.
Step outside. Can we go inside? Search your premises?
But Blackburn isn't there.
Or may have been used in the commission of a crime.
Agents ask the fugitive's sister-in-law where Tim Blackburn is. She says she doesn't know.
This could be extremely
They ask why Sophia's Isuzu is there and not her own car, which authorities know as a Nissan Pathfinder.
I'll be as bad for you as him.
She claims it's in the shop, but her story does not check out. Agents suspect Blackburn is on the run with her Pathfinder.
Can you tell us where it is?
No, I have no idea where it's at.
For the next week, the FBI searches for Blackburn, his wife, and their 2 little girls. They come up empty. Then, 9 days after the jailbreak, a Las Vegas police helicopter spots a Nissan Pathfinder parked in the desert. A family of 4 is nearby. The FBI and Las Vegas police arrive in force.
Now we have no shot.
Special Agent Castle Nishimoto leads the FBI SWAT team.
We were located on a ridgeline quite a bit above them, and there was a valley between us.
We can see some people about half a mile away, too far away to identify them.
If law enforcement tries to move any closer, they will have to move through an unprotected open space.
We had to keep our distance from these people, because if it was Blackburn, he is a marksman.
Nevertheless, Agent Schlumpf daringly volunteers to drive down for a closer look.
It did take some courage, because the only coverage he had would have been the snipers. And they had at least 300 or 400 yards shot, as I recall.
As Agent Schlumpf gets nearer, he can finally make out faces.
I could recognize that it wasn't Blackburn. It wasn't anybody who we were looking for.
Authorities have hit another dead end. But Agent Schlumpf also realizes that authorities cannot continue to respond on such a massive scale.
There must have been 100 vehicles in this valley. All the SWAT vehicles and evidence response team vehicles and police cruisers. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, we can't be doing this every time someone says Tim Blackburn. I mean, nobody's got the resources and we're going to burn ourselves out.
The next night, law enforcement pursues the dangerous fugitive with every available resource.
We had about 40 agents, police, marshals, Henderson Police Department, detention center people. We got everybody together, and we divided up into teams. And what we were going to do was interview every one of Blackburn's associates, search every house, find every vehicle that he could possibly have access to.
U.S. Marshals tell the FBI they have spotted the fugitive.
We arrive right as they're taking down what they believe is Tim Blackburn.
I could tell right away it wasn't Tim Blackburn, it was his brother. His brother is a younger, slightly smaller version of Tim Blackburn, very similar in appearance. As we're IDing him, what we notice is that his driver's license was brand new. He had just gotten it the day before. So we asked him, well, what happened to your old license?
On the hood.
Blackburn's brother claims he lost his license. But agents suspect he gave it to the fugitive to use as a fake ID. In the car, agents find a note from Tim Blackburn. In it, he asks his brother to get him some money. A man who once had $1 million in his possession now needs a loan to survive.
We decided to arrest him for aiding and abetting a fugitive. So that's what we did. We arrested Tim Blackburn's brother.
Authorities also arrest Blackburn's sister-in-law for lying to federal authorities when she said her Nissan Pathfinder was in the shop. With 2 of his family members in custody, agents develop an ingenious plan to lure Tim Blackburn into the open. In Las Vegas, a violent bank robber breaks out of jail with the help of his wife. After 3 days of eluding authorities, agents decide to turn up the heat on the dangerous fugitive.
One of the people we wanted to talk to that night was a close friend of Blackburn's who worked as a bouncer at a local gentleman's club. Most people who knew Blackburn either liked him or were afraid of him. And neither opinion was really conducive to providing information to us. His friend was really no exception. He didn't want to tell us anything, but eventually what he told us was that Tim Blackburn had called him at the time he was escaping. Blackburn had called up and said, I'm out, I'm out. And this friend could hear the sirens and stuff in the background.
You're the last guy that we know of.
So I told this friend, you are the last person who Tim Blackburn talked to that we know about. And I think he's going to call you again. And when he does, we want you to tell him that we've arrested his brother and that the people who have assisted him are going to have to pay for what they did to help him. This putting pressure on Blackburn was an effort to try to get him to realize he couldn't really escape, to get him to turn himself in wherever he was at. The next morning, this friend called me up and told me that, sure enough, Tim Blackburn had called him again, and that he had told him that I'd arrested his brother and his sister-in-law. And, I asked him, what did Blackburn say? And he just said he was mad.
2.5 weeks after the jailbreak, FBI agent Henry Schlumpf learns that Blackburn may have returned to Las Vegas.
I got a phone call from a Las Vegas SWAT officer. He had just met someone who gave him some information regarding Blackburn's whereabouts in Las Vegas, which to my mind was doubtful. I doubted Blackburn was in Las Vegas. But I asked the officer to ask this fella if he knew the names of Blackburn's daughters. And sure enough, this informant did know the names, so at least we knew he did know Blackburn.
The informant claims Blackburn is staying at a motel that caters to long-term guests. Agent Schlumpf and 2 Las Vegas SWAT officers rush to the location.
You seen these two before?
The manager says he's never seen the Blackburns before and they are not registered at the motel.
Okay, that's your register. I'm gonna get that. You have a key?
Still, Agent Schlumpf decides to rent a room so he can surveil the facility.
Okay.
SWAT officers call in the license plates of every vehicle in the parking lot. None of them are reported as either stolen or owned by any of Blackburn's relatives. The motel tip is beginning to look like another false lead. The FBI does not give up. They begin checking every apartment.
So what we decided to do was to perform a ruse. We would have a complex security guard just start knocking on doors and notifying the residents of noise complaints. I'm there watching, and the door opens, and Sophia Blackburn comes out to talk to the guard. I couldn't believe it. There she was. She looked happy and smiling and well-rested, better than I'd ever seen her. She did not look like she'd been on the run for 17 days.
Suspecting that Blackburn is hiding in the apartment, Agent Schlumpf calls for immediate backup. The criminal apprehension team in Las Vegas SWAT arrive within minutes.
SWAT responded right away. More agents came, and a lot of patrol units, marshals came. And what we did was we started evacuating the complex. Every apartment was evacuated except, of course, for the one where we thought Blackburn might be. And then we did what we do in 99% of our fugitive cases. Our criminal apprehension team placed a call into the apartment.
I need to talk to Timothy Blackburn.
What they do is they tell the person in there, look, we know you're there. You're surrounded. There's no way that you can get out. So come on out.
We just want to find a nice, peaceful way to end this whole thing.
So I'm waiting for Blackburn to come out, and I'm deciding, where are we going to take him? Back to the jail he escaped from or to a different facility? And that was my mindset. If he was in there, he was going to come out. But he doesn't.
Agent Slump, he wants to talk to you.
apprehension team person was on the phone, and she says he wants to talk to you.
Hello, Tim.
And sure enough, it was Tim Blackburn. And my job was just to keep him talking on the phone, because as long as he's talking on the phone, he's not shooting anybody. When I first started talking with Blackburn, I was kind of commiserating with him, telling him, you know, it must have been hard being on the run for the last 3 weeks.
Hey, I took the kids to San Diego. Have you ever been
So
to San
here he
Diego?
was, maybe 10 minutes from Mexico, and he didn't go there. He came back to Las Vegas.
Agent Schlumpf cannot understand why Blackburn has returned, but is even more concerned that his children may be with him.
Why don't we just talk about...
Then his worst fears are realized. He hears the two little girls laughing in the background.
There's children inside the room. Repeat, there's children inside the room.
The SWAT team set up outside the apartment, and they were there to initiate a hostage rescue if Blackburn turned violent and started hurting any of the people in the apartment, Sophia and their two little girls. He says, Henry, I don't suppose you can just let us go. And I told him, I can't do that.
I'm not going back to jail, man. I'm not going back to jail. Look, I don't want my kids to visit me in jail.
Tim was set on not going back to jail. He said he just wasn't going to go back. And, after shooting a guard, there's no way any of that is going to go away.
Schlumpf worries that Blackburn may be suicidal.
Hey, Tim, it's time to come in, buddy.
Authorities now face a dangerous scenario. A hostage barricade situation involving an armed man, his wife, and two small children.
Look, I'm not going back, man. That's just it. I'm not going back to jail. I'm not going back.
The FBI and police SWAT teams surround a motel just off the Strip in Las Vegas. A violent bank robber has barricaded himself inside one of the apartments.
I'm not going back, man.
Tim Blackburn is armed and emotional. Inside the room with him are his wife, Sophia, and his two daughters.
Oh, you came back?
FBI agent Henry Schlumpf tries to talk the desperate man into surrendering.
Come on out.
Although negotiators are present, Blackburn refuses to talk with anyone but Agent Schlumpf, who months earlier had arrested him for bank robbery.
I'm not going back to jail, man. I don't want my kids to visit me in jail.
Agent Schlumpf pleads with both Blackburn and Sophia to let the children leave the apartment.
Slow it all down.
Sometimes I talked with Sophia and sometimes with Blackburn. It seemed like maybe we were getting a little farther ahead talking with Sophia, but then when we take a break and she talked to Blackburn, we kind of have to start over again. He had a lot of influence with her, because he's her husband. She was afraid that if she were to leave with the children, that Blackburn would kill himself. And, she certainly didn't want that to happen. We'd take breaks, and then I'd call in again. There were highs and lows. Sometimes it seemed like we were making progress. Other times, we took a couple of steps backward.
So, Henry, what's the best place to shoot myself in the head, huh?
He asked me what I thought would be the best place for him to shoot himself. And I told him that we had a lot of other things that we could talk about and try to work out before it came to that.
How are the kids doing?
Blackburn says he put his daughters in the bathtub to protect them.
For their own protection.
But the SWAT commander is concerned. Confining them could also be the prelude to a murder-suicide pact. The SWAT team prepares to blow the door in case they need to rescue Sophia and the children.
the SWAT team placed a explosive charge on the door, an entry charge, so to be able to breach the door very quickly if they needed to.
After 4 long hours of negotiation,
they had to go clear to the back, into the bathroom, to try and rescue the children. And in this case, seconds, fractions of seconds count.
They got there just in time to see Blackburn falling down from a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
they find Sophia dead. Both the children have been shot in the head and are barely alive.
I saw them running very quickly to try to save the children.
The SWAT team got them to the paramedics, but they died in their arms.
I felt quite saddened that my fellow SWAT officers tried their best and yet wasn't able to save the children. Our mission was to save lives, and we were not able to accomplish that.
It was just devastating. It was like the worst possible outcome.
The coroner later determines that the shots that killed Blackburn, Sophia, and their 2 little girls were all fired by Blackburn himself. A few months later, in federal court in Las Vegas, Riley Bates and his girlfriend plead guilty to possessing stolen money. Because of their cooperation, they are sentenced to only a year. Blackburn's sister-in-law is sentenced to 1 year for lying to federal agents and impeding their investigation. Robert Bates pleads guilty to bank robbery and is sentenced to 24 years in prison. Today, Agent Henry Schlumpf has made his own peace with the tragic events caused by Tim Blackburn.
He's ultimately responsible for everything that happened. He came back to Las Vegas to do exactly what he did. He came back to die. I don't think he was gonna ever come out of that apartment or let anybody else come out of it either.
Las Vegas law enforcement will never forget the deaths of 2 innocent children. For them, the Blackburn case is all about lost hope and the tragedy of a desperate agenda. 2 brutal murders in 2 small towns, located hundreds of miles apart. The crimes seem random and unrelated. As investigators search for a motive, they make a startling discovery. Both murders are the work of a cunning crime ring. Local police and the FBI must untangle a web of lies to stop a dangerous gang that will kill a man for his identity.
In the United States, identity theft costs citizens billions of dollars. In some cases, it costs the lives of innocent people. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. In 1999, a bizarre murder led agents and police on a manhunt across the South. Their mission, to catch a killer who stole the identities of his victims and had the survival skills to disappear forever.
In Henderson County, Kentucky, on March 10th at 3 a.m., the Sheriff's Department receives a bizarre call.
16th Street?
A man reports that a stranger is outside his home. The resident tells police that the stranger broke into his truck and is sitting in his driveway honking the horn repeatedly. When sheriff's deputies arrive, they find the attempted car thief is a 62-year-old man. He is soaking wet and suffering from severe hypothermia. The man identifies himself as Richard Dorman. He says 2 men abducted him at gunpoint and threw him in the Green River. He tells police he broke into the truck to try and get someone to help him. Police take him to the hospital. Lieutenant Frank Gropp of the Henderson County Sheriff's Department is called out to question Richard Dorman. Lieutenant Gropp does not recognize the name, but he knows the face.
It's between 2 and 3 in the morning, and we converge at the hospital. As soon as I see the guy, he looks like the photograph. He's the guy in the photograph.
The photo is from a bank surveillance camera. Gropp has been searching for the mysterious man in the photo for 4 weeks, ever since he responded to an emergency call to a local farm. Farmer Jack Norris lived alone in Henderson, Kentucky. On February 3rd, Lieutenant Gropp made a gruesome discovery after a call from one of Norris's neighbors.
When I got out there, deputies led me to a building adjacent to the victim's home. In the building, the victim had kept hay, and it's a shed, actually, open-faced. And the contents of the shed was hay from the floor to the top, with a space to the left where you could walk. And over in that space was the victim's body. And at that point, we knew we had a murder.
Jack Norris's body was covered with blood. It appeared he was beaten to death.
Looked like something had punctured his back several times. There was a pickaxe up toward the entrance. Closer examination, we could see blood on the handle.
Blood on the handle?
On the pick itself. An inch or more of the pickaxe was wet.
Deputies continued to search the area. Near a wood pile, Gropp found a pile of hay. Underneath are dried blood stains.
Closer inspection, I could see blood splatter up and along the wood that was stacked there, which was telling me that was the actual point of impact. That's the scene of the crime right there.
Gropp found a heavy iron pole next to the stack of wood. There was blood on it.
To pick up an item that is that heavy and beat a man in the head like that, it would tell me that the person that's swinging this weapon is angry, aggressive. He's doing it with force and doing it with a purpose.
Investigators searched the victim's house for clues. They hoped that inside they would find something to help them make sense of this senseless act.
Definitely had time.
Norris's home was ransacked. Drawers and cabinets were opened and searched.
Whoever this was took their time. Either took their time or there's more than one individual doing 2 things at the same time.
Although the murderer tore the room apart, nothing of any value appeared to be missing. In fact, the victim's wallet was found in his pocket.
One of the things that struck us was the calendars were still on January 31st, which was Sunday. They had not been flipped over to February 1st. So, as an educated guess, we put the murder at Monday morning. Later, we used the mail carrier and the mail that was in the mailbox, and pretty much that confirmed. He never did get his mail from Monday.
Sheriff's deputies canvassed the area. The victim's neighbors provide an intriguing clue.
Right away, the neighbors telling us that this man carried 2 wallets. We have a wallet missing. It's the wallet with his ID. The one wallet he had ID, the other wallet he carried for different reasons. But the wallet and ID is missing.
The second wallet and the missing ID only added to the puzzle. Police recalled finding an empty box of checks at the victim's home. Gropp thought perhaps he'd found the motive. News of the Norris murder spreads quickly. Local residents were afraid. Who did this and why? For days, the Henderson County Sheriff's Office tried to unravel the crime, but nothing seemed to make sense. Then, suddenly, they got an unexpected break. A bank in Union County called with intriguing information.
The bank notified us that they had received a check from an individual off of Mr. Norris's account, that they had compared the signatures, and that, from what they could tell, was a forgery.
The only thing missing from the Norris home was an ID and a box full of checks. Perhaps the missing checks would lead them to Norris's killer.
We went to the bank. This was just an excellent tape of this individual standing there at the counter, white hair. He had signed the name or used the name Cleo Campbell.
The man with white hair is Richard Dorman. Hours after Jack Norris's murder, Dorman called himself Cleo Campbell and cashed a check on Norris's account for $1,100, almost the exact balance in the account. Lieutenant Gropp knows who Dorman is, but why was Dorman posing as Cleo Campbell? After the Norris robbery, when Gropp got the photo, he began searching for Campbell.
We checked surrounding counties for the person and the name, Cleo Campbell.
There was no Cleo Campbell that met the description in the area.
We go on the internet, we look up every Cleo Campbell that we can find nationwide. If I found a Cleo Campbell in any particular state, I would contact the local law enforcement agency, and they'd call me back one after the other and saying, this is not the guy.
Investigators searched for the elusive Cleo Campbell for weeks, but nothing panned out. It was as if Campbell never existed. Then Gropp learned that Campbell was the name of a robbery victim in Alabama. The mystery surrounding Richard Dorman was deepening. Lieutenant Gropp has a lot he wants to ask Dorman.
And I said, well, Cleo, and I said, you don't mind if I call you Cleo, do you? That's how I've come to know you. And his eyes are just, they get big.
Dorman realizes he's been caught.
And in a real polite manner, he says, look, I don't want you boys to be offended, but this goes across state lines. You're going to need some federal people on this. You're going to need the FBI.
Lieutenant Gropp calls in the FBI. Special Agent Paul Pape is brought in to interview Richard Dorman. Dorman launches into an incredible story. He tells the agent that he agreed to meet a man named Charlie Stewart at a truck stop in Clarksville, Tennessee.
Charlie Stewart, according to Dorman, was the ringleader of this group that went around and stole checks and cashed checks and assumed other people's identities. He said that he was a check casher.
Charlie provided Dorman with false identification in the Norris check. The day before he was abducted, Dorman was told there was a problem, and Charlie wanted to talk to him about it. Special Agent Paul Pape.
As he waited for Stewart, a young male came up to his car and said, are you Richard Dorman? And Dorman says, yeah, I am. What's it to you? And at that point, the young male lunged at Dorman and tried to start, he had a stun gun in his hand and was trying to stun him with this stun gun. Another older gentleman came around to Dorman's car and had a gun, a little Derringer, and pointed that right at Dorman. And at that point, Dorman, seeing the gun, stopped resisting and said, basically, what's this all about? And the older gentleman said, Charlie wants to see you.
Dorman and the two men drive north until they reach the Green River in Kentucky.
Dorman said they pulled over on a dirt road there right next to the river, got Dorman out of the car, and went to the back of the trunk. They gave Dorman a cigarette. The older male said to Dorman that we got to take you to see Charlie, but before we do that, we need you to get into the trunk.
Dorman had no choice. The two men demanded his wallet.
And all of a sudden, the vehicle takes off with him in the trunk and plunges over about a 20-foot embankment into the Green River. When the vehicle hits the river, the trunk pops open. Dorman is able to swim out of the trunk before the car submerges. He grabs onto a log and drifts downstream probably 100, 200 yards. The abductors think at this time, well, he's either drowned or he's going to freeze to death because of the temperature of the water.
Dorman tells agents he had never met the two men who tried to kill him, but he certainly worked for Charlie Stewart. Stewart is a man all too familiar to Lieutenant Gropp. A man Gropp believes must have been involved in Jack Norris's murder. Now he has to prove it. In Henderson, Kentucky, a mysterious man claims two men tried to kill him by throwing him into the Green River.
How did you get the front?
He tells police a known criminal named Charlie Stewart is behind his kidnapping and attempted murder. Henderson County Sheriff's investigator Lieutenant Frank Gropp knows Stewart only too well.
Charlie Stewart is infamous in this area. He's well known. He's been involved in all sorts of different criminal activity.
Charlie Stewart is a suspect in the murder of a farmer in Kentucky. And Stewart is also wanted in connection with a homicide in Alabama. On the morning of February 8th in Alabama, 5 days after the Norris murder in Kentucky, a Morgan County deputy responded to a call. Someone abandoned a van at the old Gum Pond rock quarry. The front end of the vehicle was submerged. The deputy checked out the back. Inside, he found an old quilt, stacks of paperwork, and the body of a man. The victim's wrists were bound. His face was covered with duct tape.
Body in the van at the rock quarry.
He was not breathing. You could not see any chest movement at all. It was obvious that he was dead.
Detective Terry Kelly is a criminal investigator with the Morgan County Sheriff's Office.
When an officer comes across what appears to be especially a homicide, but any crime scene that can be processed for evidence, he observes what he can, backs off, calls the investigators, and we arrive and take the scene from there.
Investigators secured the scene and waited for the forensic team to arrive. Captain Mike Corley.
Patience is hard in a case like this, but we knew that the damaging of evidence or the contaminating of evidence would be crucial in court.
Xander, Kelly, forensics here.
The forensic unit arrived at the rock quarry. The victim was a white male. He appeared to be in his late 40s or early 50s.
The forensics persons started their processing of the scene, which is photographing, measuring, checking to see if they could observe any latent prints on the vehicle that would be worth processing.
All right, let's see if we can get it open.
Investigators opened the other door and spotted a dark blanket.
Let me see your hands. Let me see your hands now.
And we saw that move. Someone says there's movement.
It's kind of scared all of us, I'll tell you the truth. We were not expecting that.
Get an ambulance. We're gonna need an ambulance. All right.
Under the material, investigators found a woman. She had been badly beaten.
She was duct taped up also. She was had a duct tape around her mouth, around her hands.
What happened? What happened to you?
Police questioned the only survivor, Florence Nichols.
Forever, but it was a long
She told them what happened.
Did you see what the guys looked like?
Florence and her son James had just gotten home from a flea market.
He was a businessman. You know, he had a little shop that it was kind of a mom and pop type gun trading and guitars and musical instruments. And they lived together in Eva, and they pretty much always had there in the Eva community.
A few minutes later, there was a knock at the door. It was a young man asking for directions. He forced his way into the house, and then he attacked her.
It was just a small, I don't know much about.
But she tells investigators she heard a second man's voice.
Did you hear their?
As far as she could tell, he ran through the living room and down the hall where her son James was. A few minutes later, she was thrown into the back of her own van. Something very heavy was thrown on top of her. It was the body of her son. According to Florence, the van drove for a few minutes, then stopped.
She had been in that van for probably 14 to 16 hours, as best as we can reconstruct. The whole time with her son, who was deceased on top of her, fearing for her own life. It had to have been horrendous. I'm amazed that she survived. She knew deep down that these people intended to kill her. I think she had no doubt in her mind.
Florence Nichols described her attackers. The man who came to the door was young, late teens or early 20s. She didn't get a look at the other one. She had no idea why anybody would want to hurt her or her son. Investigators searched the Nichols home looking for clues. Nothing appeared to be missing.
We had a fairly large gun collection. There was a fairly large amount of knives, collectible knives. There was so much stuff left that would have been good items to steal. It doesn't appear to be a robbery. If it's not a robbery, why would they kill someone? What was the motive? What was going on? So it's a very strange case at first.
Investigators returned to the Nichols home. They wanted to go over the house a second time in case they missed something. This time, Florence Nichols told them she carefully went through her belongings and discovered a few items were missing. Some collectible guns, some knives, about $200 in cash, and her son's checkbook.
If those checks are going to show up somewhere forged and pass somewhere else, you know, that could lead you back to your perpetrator. So in a way, it's good news that the checkbook was missing.
The FBI and police are now working 2 homicides and a string of robberies they suspect are linked to Charlie Stewart. There was an eerie parallel between the Alabama and the Kentucky murder cases. Lieutenant Frank Gropp.
Charlie Stewart being from here, it's an obvious connection from here to there. The type of murder is the same. It appeared that the man in Alabama was murdered for his identification, and that fits what we're looking at. So at that point, we kind of focus on Charlie Stewart. When our case comes together, that's exciting. And when the pieces fell together like this, that was just, it was more than I could ask for. We felt that this was it.
But to solve the puzzle, investigators must first find Charlie Stewart. Agents turn up the pressure on Dorman. Dorman begins to give the agents the details of Charlie Stewart and his deadly identity theft ring.
Dorman had been working with Stewart for a couple of 3 years. He was always provided with ID that at least appeared to be him or looked like him. He would walk into a bank very calmly, knowing he had a stolen check and sometimes a check of a dead man, and was passing that and wouldn't even break a sweat, not a nervous bone in his body. He was a pro.
Ironically, Dorman himself was targeted by Stewart's deadly scam. When Stewart hired 2 men to kill Dorman, they took his wallet before they dumped his body. So far, police and the FBI have identified 2 members of the identity theft ring. Richard Dorman is in custody, but the most dangerous one, suspected murderer Charlie Stewart, is still on the run, along with his unnamed accomplices. The FBI and police hope Dorman can lead them to the men before they target another victim. The FBI and police in Alabama and Kentucky are working 2 homicide investigations they think were engineered by the same man, Charlie Stewart. In Alabama, a man was found murdered in a van beside his badly beaten mother at a rock quarry. The night before the bodies were found, a deputy responded to a call at the rock quarry. A resident complained that someone had stolen his tractor. When the deputy first arrived to check out the area, he saw a gray 1977 Pontiac Grand Prix. The vehicle's hood felt warm, but the driver was gone. The deputy got the plate numbers and searched for the driver. But when he got back, the Grand Prix was gone. The Grand Prix was parked 150 yards from where the van was found the next morning. Captain Mike Corley.
It was just too coincidental to have not been related.
The gray Grand Prix was now investigators' best lead. Investigator Terry Kelly.
It was decided to put out what we call a bolo, be on the lookout for this vehicle, this gray Pontiac. So that was broadcast over the air to local law enforcement. News media likes to have scanners. They picked up on it, of course, questioned us. And we responded, let them know that, yes, we were looking for this vehicle. It was a vehicle of interest, possibly in this homicide. We simply wanted to talk to the people that were in it, see if they saw or heard anything unusual in that area that night. We had several telephone calls, several sightings.
Tips came in, but none of them turned out to be the car they were looking for.
We appreciate you coming in, sir.
A few days later, a local man contacted the Morgan County Sheriff's Office with a promising tip. He told investigators that they should take a look at a man by the name of Larry Butler, who owned a gray Grand Prix. According to the man, Butler left town on a motorcycle around the time of James Nichols' murder. The Grand Prix had not been seen since. When police pulled up Butler's criminal record, they learned that Larry Butler was an alias. His real name was Charlie Stewart.
He has numerous aliases and a long, long criminal history. Burglaries, robberies, violent crimes, and a current warrant on him out of the state of Florida. When you see somebody with that kind of criminal history that suddenly disappears the night of a homicide and nobody's heard from since, you know, I might be a little cynical as a law enforcement officer, but it makes you a little suspicious.
Lieutenant Chuck Zanda from the Morgan County Sheriff's Office makes several visits to Stewart's home, a trailer in an isolated area. Each time, Stewart's wife tells him she has no idea where he is.
Do you have any idea when the last time you saw him?
Investigators also question Stewart's neighbors.
We'll be in touch.
We had received word that Charles Stewart had come to one of his neighbors and wanted him to cash a check on a dead man's account. Of course, that sent up flags for us. He was very afraid of Stewart. He was convinced that Mr. Stewart would set his trailer on fire and wait until he ran outside and shoot him as he came out. That was his words. That's the kind of person he thought Stewart was.
That's the reason I didn't come.
The neighbor also tells investigators that the day before Nichols' murder, he saw Stewart in his Grand Prix with two other men. Unfortunately, he didn't get a good look at the men with Stewart. Agents and police hit another dead end. The FBI is involved in an intense manhunt to try and capture suspected murderer Charlie Stewart and shut down his identity theft ring. Agents already have one of his accomplices, Richard Dorman, in custody, but he hasn't been able to lead them to the fugitive. After weeks of working the stalled case, the FBI gets a break. Special Agent Paul Pape.
Someone calls me at the office and said that they had information that I needed to hear. This person tells us that the two people responsible for these murders are Billy Lyon and his father, Larry Lyon, both from Henderson, Kentucky.
According to the cooperator, Billy Lyon told her they intended to rob a tobacco store in Evansville, Indiana, where he used to work. He planned to kill the manager and steal the safe.
And that was supposed to happen fairly quickly. So with this information, a new sense of urgency is placed on the case where we not only have old murders, but now we have one that's pending. So we have to act immediately on it.
Lieutenant Frank Gropp of the Henderson County, Kentucky Sheriff's Office.
Have you ever seen any of these men?
Agent Paul Pape and I, along with City Police, set up a photo array which consists of 6 or more photographs of like individuals who look similar. And we show that to Dorman.
Dorman quickly picks Larry Lyon and his son, 18-year-old Billy Lyon, out of the photo array.
We initiate surveillance on Billy Lyon's house in Evansville, Indiana, with the FBI and the Evansville police. And we also have the house in Henderson, Kentucky, where Larry Lyon is living under surveillance. The plan was to go obtain search warrants and arrest warrants, both in Indiana and Kentucky, for the two suspects, their houses, their cars, and get everyone coordinated, bring up the extra help from surrounding areas to coordinate these searches. But as all plans go, this one didn't work out.
There he is. There he is.
Billy Lyon leaves his house and heads toward Henderson, where his father lives.
Let's go, guys. Let's go.
So at this point, we have to make a decision. Do we let Billy Lyon go and run the risk of, one, losing him, or two, him going to Larry Lyon's house and coordinate with him to go do this tobacco store murder? So we made the decision that we needed to stop Billy Lyon and arrest him.
Driver, turn off ignition and put your hands out of...
Shortly after they entered into the state of Kentucky, the Henderson Police Department pulled Billy Lyon's vehicle over, along with undercover units from Evansville PD and the FBI, and we took Billy Lyon into custody.
Agents questioned Billy Lyon at the Evansville police station.
You could tell from his attitude that he knew at that point that the gig was up. He is obviously apprehensive about speaking to us.
As Billy is being questioned, Henderson deputies maintain surveillance on his father's residence. They observe Larry Lyon leave in a hurry.
Yeah, he's leaving now. Go pick him up.
Authorities fear Lyon has heard about his son being arrested and that he's trying to make a run for it. Lieutenant Frank Grubb.
At that point in time, I believe you have one city cruiser that's behind him that initiates a stop. The city officer would hold his position until other officers arrived. But Larry Lyon never gave that chance to happen.
Hold it, Ray. Stop. Put your hands out the window.
Larry Lyon is rushed to a hospital in Evansville, where he dies of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. At the Evansville police station, Special Agent Pape continues to question Billy Lyon.
I don't understand why you would just...
My thought is if I tell him that his father just killed himself, that will be the end of the interview, understandably. So I didn't tell him about his father at that point. I continued with the interview. At first it was almost like pulling teeth to try to get him to say anything. And he really opened up when I told him that I knew Charlie Stewart was behind this, and that, you know, he was responsible for, at least in part, in telling you and Larry to go ahead and commit these murders. And the first thing that Billy said to me was, Charlie Stewart's a psycho. And he proceeded to tell us about the Jack Norris murder and the Nichols murder in Alabama and the kidnapping of Dorman and putting him into the river. He laid all the guilt on Stewart, that Stewart was directing them to do that.
Billy Lyon tells Special Agent Pape that Stewart will be impossible to catch. He's smart. He knows how to survive in the wilderness, and he's extremely dangerous. In Alabama and Kentucky, FBI agents and local law enforcement dismantle a gang of identity thieves willing to kill a man for his driver's license. Only one member remains at large, the ringleader, Charlie Stewart. The FBI closes in on the fugitive. Two of Stewart's associates, now in custody, tell authorities the fugitive is dangerous, self-sufficient, and able to live off the land. Investigator Terry Kelly has helped chase Stewart for more than a year.
He supposedly had money stashed in several different locations that he could keep running to. He was excellent in the woods and able to hide out, a master of disguise, and Mr. Stewart was very good at changing his appearance.
A combined task force of FBI agents and local law enforcement raid Stewart's trailer.
Clear!
Special Agent Scott Broshears.
We didn't find any evidence on the murders, but we did find a lot of interesting things. He had cut a hole in the bottom of his house trailer where he could get out the back. We found a van that was like in the bushes that we didn't even see it when we first arrived. But it had like a telephone wire out there where we could have communications back to his house trailer.
Clear, clear, clear.
Inside the van, agents find 20 weapons and ammunition.
He could have used it as a bunker and held off people for a long time. So we knew that he was not going to be an easy catch, and if we did come across him, it was probably going to be a battle.
You got a van there for guns and ammunition?
Apparently, Stewart has been preparing for this moment for a long time. And now he's gone.
No signs of him?
Basically, my job now is, since Stewart lived in my area, was to try to find Charlie Stewart. Even though Stewart seemed to be a ruthless individual, he did value his family.
As time passes, agents keep up the pressure on Stewart's wife. She continues to claim her husband has not contacted her.
Our sources would tell us that his wife was very afraid of him, even though, you know, she would protect him. She was also afraid of him.
Months pass. There is no sign of Stewart.
It is frustrating. It's very frustrating. You work as hard as you can, you develop the leads as fast as you can, you look everywhere you can think of looking.
After nearly a year, Stewart is featured on a national crime show.
We got very few leads, which we felt was unusual, because, you know, a lot of times you get a lot of leads and more than you can handle, and you have to start picking and choosing the good ones. But we got very few leads, so that kind of led us to believe, well, he's in hiding somewhere, and it's probably going to be in the Kentucky area that he knows real well, or the Alabama area.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Lieutenant Brashears with the FBI.
Agents re-interview the fugitive's neighbors. They are too afraid to say whether or not they have seen Charlie Stewart.
If Stewart found out that they had talked to us or given any information, he would get him killed somehow. And they really believed that. They were usually scared to death of him and really wouldn't give us a lot of information. As time went on, and as I kind of were able to develop a little rapport with a few of the people, they started cooperating a little bit, and they realized that, as scared as they were, they're probably better off getting him captured than having him out on the loose.
You know what day it was?
Slowly, Stewart's neighbors begin to give agents information.
That's all you got?
We were able to find out that his wife had bought like a sleeping bag and was buying some clothes that were too big for her kids. She bought size 11 boots, and none of her kids wore size 11, or she had maybe a 14-year-old, but I was pretty sure his feet weren't that big.
It's just more evidence that Stewart is hiding in the area. Authorities try a different approach.
We developed several sources within the FBI that we thought we could send in to talk to Stewart's wife, just casually to ask questions about this and that.
Yes.
The FBI brings in a friend of Stewart's who has agreed to help police. The man has known Stewart for years. He agrees to wear a wire so agents can listen in on his conversation with Stewart's wife.
At this point, you know, we're kind of sitting on the edge of our seats. We're just really confident that he's probably going to be there.
The cooperator approaches the trailer.
The source went in, nobody was there. He knocked on the door, didn't see anything, and he had to walk back down the dirt road to get back to his car. And then as he gets in his car, he looks in his rearview mirror and he thought he saw someone back at the trailer, and he thought it was Charlie Stewart. And he looked around and he didn't see the person again. then he's telling us, I'm sure I saw Stewart up a trailer. Says I just got a quick glimpse, but when I turned around, it wasn't there. But I'm pretty sure I saw him up there.
Special Agent Paul Pape.
Who knows what could have happened or what he was armed with at that time. It would have been Russian roulette to send us in there, trying to apprehend him at that time. You just don't bum rush the woods to try to find the guy. It has to be, you have to outfox the fox.
Agents and police must come up with a plan to trap the dangerous fugitive. Fugitive Charles Stewart is wanted for bank fraud, kidnapping, murder for hire, and murder.
And if you're looking for
The FBI and Alabama authorities believe he is hiding out in the dense woods behind his home. Special Agent Scott Broshears.
We kind of started putting together the theory that, okay, he's living back in this woods, either in a tent or in one of those little caves. Maybe he comes back after the sun goes down, spends the night with the family. Before the sun comes up, he heads back out in the woods. I went out with 3 or 4 of the guys from our office, and we just hiked out in the woods like we were just hunters.
When the agents find evidence Stewart's hiding in the woods, Chuck Zanda and Terry Kelly from the Morgan County Sheriff's Office bring in a canine unit to track Stewart down.
I'd been looking for Charlie Stewart for approximately a year by now. Put a lot of hours in it, and nothing was really coming up to where I was finding him. So I wasn't real optimistic, or I probably would have taken more people with me.
Not far from the trailer, the dogs pick up a scent. Detective Terry Kelly.
Dogs hit a hot track, and they hit it hard, and they hit it fast, almost immediately. And the chase was on.
And the dogs immediately took us to a tree and were barking up a tree, which kind of made us a little scared, thinking he might be in the tree, and we saw a deer stand.
The deer stand was empty. But the agents were not far behind Stewart. The dogs follow the scent down a ravine to a creek.
We got down a little ways, and the dogs found a cave. We kind of backed off a little bit because we didn't know what was in the cave. Dogs went in the cave, come back out, but it wasn't real deep, and with our flashlights and things we had, we were able to see there was food, fresh food, the sleeping bag, other camping supplies.
Stewart can't be far away.
All of a sudden, you see Scott Broshears bounding through the field, and it looks like he's doing about a 4-minute mile. He's hauling, and he's coming to tell us we got a hot track. We got a hot track. We found his cave. We're on him.
Nice here.
Captain Mike Corley.
As quick as I could, I called, and I got a roll call of everybody that was in service that day. I called for the air unit. I began to get things in place.
We had state police responding, some of the local police officers from the local cities and the sheriff's office trying to establish a perimeter around this 2 by 5 mile wooded area.
You know, I probably had between 20 and 30 officers out there.
As the dog team calls in their location, Corley positions his men.
Every time I got a chance to shift an officer 100 yards, that just took 100 yards away from him. I wanted to tighten that area down, close that noose in around him to where he had nowhere to go.
After probably close to 3 hours of chasing him through the woods, I finally hear on my radio from one of the other sheriff's deputies that a guy's been spotted running out of the woods.
Help!
Stewart is cornered. He pulls out a gun.
Put the weapon down!
And now probably comes the worst point of the whole search. As we're hearing that they're closing in and the deputies think they have him, I hear shots have been fired.
I hear gunshots.
I don't know if it's, one of our guys, the dog handlers, or... But then a few seconds later, we did hear nobody was hurt and that Stewart had been captured.
The chase was over. A long, long chase was over. The chase had started almost a year and a half before. Charlie was a scary man. There was a coldness in his eyes, a very, very scary coldness. I'm very glad he was in custody. Very glad.
In January 2002, Stewart and his gang are tried and found guilty of bank fraud, kidnapping, and murder. Richard Dorman receives a life sentence for his role in the crimes. Billy Lyon is also sentenced to life. Charles Lewis Stewart is convicted on all counts. He is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Authorities believe Charlie Stewart masterminded the entire operation. He ordered Larry and Billy Lyon to rob Jack Norris and James Nichols. He then handed off the victims' stolen IDs and checkbooks to Richard Dorman, the fourth member of the gang, so he could clean out their bank accounts. Stewart chose his victims carefully, based on their resemblance to Dorman. It's a disturbing scenario. Two innocent men are dead simply because of the way they looked. The unrelenting investigation by local police and federal agents put this ring of killers and thieves behind bars forever.